he faints. And the woman comes home. She looks, there's this guy lying on the, on the doorstep. She leans over, she's looking at him, and she says, gee, I wonder, who is it? And the parent says, it's the plumber.
What if the truth came in a gel cap and we could just pop it in our mouths and forget about it? Well, it doesn't, and we can't. But we can laugh in the face of reality while plotting our survival. Welcome to the Truth Tastes Funny podcast. I am your host, Hirsch Redpun, and if my guests can handle the truth, so can you. Open wide, folks. Here it comes. With me today on Truth Tastes Funny is Andy Semotiuk. Andy is a U.S. and Canadian immigration attorney. Of course, we're not going to talk only about law. He's practiced law in L.A. for 10 years, in New York for 5 years. Let that sink in, lest you think that Andy is merely a Canadian immigration attorney. He's a foreign UN correspondent stationed in New York. He's been a Forbes contributor for 10 years. His articles have been read by over 1 million readers. He served on the Tribunal Panel of the Canadian Human Rights Commission for 3 years, and he's written 4 books and lives in Toronto, where he practices law with the Pace Law Firm. And of course, he has a background in stand-up comedy, because who else but someone with a background in stand-up comedy who is also an immigration attorney and all the other wonderful things would be on my show. Andy, welcome to Truth Tastes Funny.
I'm so glad to be with you here. It's very exciting. I've been looking forward to it ever since we talked before, and we kind of hit it off. So I think we'll probably have a good time here today as well.
Yeah, we did, and likewise. And I think we should start with stand-up comedy.
Absolutely.
Stand-up fuels the world, not just in terms of entertainment, but I think in terms of discussion. And when it's wielded with the power that it holds, it can really get people moving. So,
Oh, yeah.
so tell me, just share your perspective on stand-up, what you love about it, what your experiences have been.
Well, okay. Love about it, it's instant reaction from an audience. You're performing live, and the audience, whatever you say, you find out right away whether it's going somewhere or you bombed. I love that side of it. And it's very creative. I love the creative aspect. I love comedians who are creative with twists, the kind of comedy where you think he's going this way and he ends up going the other way.
But I'm interested in the marriage between, because I don't have this on the show very often or in life, immigration law and comedy do not necessarily seem like they would go together. Because you're still a practicing attorney.
Yeah.
Clearly immigration law, human rights, these things have been very important to you.
Yeah.
How did social consciousness manifest itself in your stand-up?
Well, that's a good question. Where it came from is I'm very interested in effective communication. That's a kind of a theme that really resonates for me. And I'll tell you why. And I don't normally share this, but you're close enough to me that I'm willing to share it. When I was growing up, my mother was deaf. And so communicating with her was hard. She read lips. So if you were somewhere in the public, you wouldn't catch on right away that she's not hearing what's going on, because she could pick up what you're saying from reading lips. But, in terms of relating to her on a day-to-day basis, it had to be very concise, specific, concrete. She had to get it quickly. I couldn't ramble around the bush and tell her a whole story. I had to get it to her. Like, delivery was very important. Quick, concise, specific, and no fooling around. Like it's not that she didn't enjoy a laugh and so on. She did. She enormously enjoyed comedy, but in terms of communication, it had to be, that was sort of perhaps a gift or something that you give her once in a while. But generally, it was it was serious, and so that influenced my presentation type of interest. But the world wasn't ready for me in terms of presentations and um, you know I'd give talks. For example, I was a member of Toastmasters for 35 years, and I
Yeah.
attended weekly meetings of clubs where people would stand up, give a presentation, and then get feedback from the members that were there. You're doing this right, but don't say all the time. Make sure you look at all the members that are in the club listening to you. Don't wobble on your feet and stuff like this. And I thought, oh, this is the area for me. This is where I should be. But the world wasn't ready for me there. There was no open door. Hey, come on in here, Andy. We need you over here. Like even though like I was pressing, like working hard, trying to, and I was thinking serious kind of more serious presentations. And as a lawyer, you have to give talks at the office, and sometimes in court, obviously, I had to perform, right, or sort of present. But the world was telling me writing is where you got to be right now. Start writing. And I was, I'd write like articles for newspapers and, little sort of vignettes and stuff like this. And it was going pretty good, the writing. And I was pathetic at writing. When I was in university, I was pathetic. I barely passed through first year English 101. The prof took pity on me and passed me because he knew otherwise I wouldn't be able to continue in my
Yeah.
studies. And he'd roll over in his grave right now if he knew that I've been a journalist for Forbes for 10 years. Are you kidding, Andy? He couldn't write two sentences. What happened? Well, and I'm getting to the point of comedy here. What happened was, anything you do often enough, if you keep doing it, you get better, 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 and pretty soon people are noticing, and that door was opening for me.
Uh-huh.
But the problem was the joy was missing. I didn't feel the sense of connection like
Mm.
you could get in stand-up. Like
Yeah.
and to be able, I think one of the greatest things you can do in life is to make someone laugh.
Yeah.
That's like instant connection. The only closest thing I can think of is songs. People who can sing songs and write lyrics and play music. That's probably even more powerful than comedy or
Well,
some moving.
what was a strange experience for me was I love to write parodies.
Yeah.
And I've, I'm a fan of a lot of comedians who are musical comedians and do parodies and do
Yeah.
stuff. I loved, back in the, back just looking historically at people like the Smothers Brothers and Martin
Oh,
Mull.
yeah.
Um, and then, different people have used the medium, Bo Burnham and other, younger comedians. But when I was doing parodies, I realized that people were not laughing as immediately as they did when I would do jokes. And I asked my wife, like, why are people not like laughing at the, and she said they're processing she said, you notice they're all smiling. They're all smiling. They're just not laughing because it by the time they laugh, they would be missing another line. So they're just kind of keyed in to the presentation. Um, but I hear what you're saying about the joy because that joy of being in a moment, in an exchange with somebody. Laughter is a release of energy. And
Yes.
that to me has always been the gift that we're giving. It's not just intellectual, engagement or amusement. It really is a release, an
Yeah.
acknowledgement that, we were holding something in before you got up there. Now we're
Yeah.
letting it out.
Yeah. I would love to do parody. I'm not good at it, but I'm trying. I've been lately. I've been trying to do a little parody, but I still got a ways to go. But I'll share something else with you, and it's so I'm into this presentation, like how do I get sort of, and along comes a guy named Larry Wild. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Have you?
It doesn't ring a
Okay.
bell immediately.
Uh, he's written more joke books than any other writer. And he performed in Las Vegas.
Oh, we got a little.
People at the National Speakers Association in the United States, which is the big, all these big speakers like I don't know, Brian Tracy, Anthony Robbins,
Sure.
Jim Rohn, all these big, big names. They all go to this or belong to this group. And he was there and he talked about comedy. And when I saw him and he gave his presentation there, I thought, gee, I should, hone in on this more. And he invited me to come to his place on for a weekend to teach me comedy.
Uh-huh.
And it was in Carmel, California.
Oh, nice. Beautiful.
Yeah. And he spent a weekend with me working on one joke all weekend, but telling me everything about how to present it and what to watch for and timing and all this stuff. And he gave me books to read. And he interviewed all the big comedians, you name them, Jay Leno, I don't know, from the Bob Hope, you name them. He interviewed them and he wrote a book. What did those comedians say to be funny and to be a stand-up? What do you have to do? And I have his book somewhere in my library. I,
Do you recall the joke? What the
yes,
joke was?
yes. Okay, so here's how he taught. Here's what he taught me. The joke is this: three elderly men are sitting on a bench. The first one says, "Oh, it's windy." The second one says, "Wednesday. I thought it was Thursday." The third one said, "Thirsty. So am I. Let's all have a drink." So that's the text. But what he taught me was how to physically present this thing. So, they're sitting on a bench. They're elderly men, very important to highlight elderly so that the audience gets the tip that they may not hear very well. And actually, I blew that text because it was three elderly men, all hard of hearing, which I
All
forgot to
hard of
put in
hearing.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Are sitting on a bench. The first one says, "Oh, it's a bit windy." And he sort of curls himself up because it's cold. The second one says, sort of like pointing to his head, "Wednesday, I thought it was Thursday." And then the third guy, as if reaching inside his pocket to pull out a Mickey and open it up, "So am I. Thirsty, so am I. Let's all have a drink."
Uh-huh.
And it was
Yeah.
the physical movement that he suggested that I
Yeah,
introduce to the
it makes
comedy.
sense because
Yeah,
the funny thing is the first guy was cold
yeah,
and that the drink is probably what he needed
yeah, yeah,
anyway, right?
yeah, 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 yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
So,
you mentioned, oh, go ahead, finish what you were gonna say.
well, I was just going to say, God bless that man. I don't know if he's still alive, Larry Wild and his wife Mary in Carmel. If he's alive and by some chance, some remote chance he still hears this, God bless you, Larry, for teaching me what you did. And it got me off on the road to doing stand-up.
That's great.
Yeah,
Um, I was thinking about what you mentioned before, misdirection you were referring to.
yeah,
Uh, and I love misdirection because to me that's the cornerstone of the setup for me is
yes,
that you're gonna give the audience something they didn't expect, which any punchline does. It
right,
sets you up, but without giving it away. And misdirection is even better because you're taking them somewhere they didn't intend to go.
right.
Uh,
That's the surprise part. The
yeah,
misdirection, the setup is you're taking them down this road, sort of around the bend, and then the punchline, pow, introduces a surprise. And in the mind of the listener, he suddenly or she suddenly realized, oh, you can go straight down the line. You don't have to go around the curve. The connection is straight down. It's the surprise. Like it's not as right.
yeah.
That's
And I think, to follow through on what we've been talking about in terms of business speaking, public speaking, giving talks,
right.
you know, the engagement, that immediacy that we're after can really only be achieved through diffusing the tension with humor because it brings us closer to the audience.
Yeah.
And I might have told you this in our first conversation, I don't remember, but um I had I had done a conference where I was invited to speak at the conference, but I was also hired to perform comedy. And that was a mistake because I was still at that point, this was several years ago, I was still at that point struggling with my identity. Was I a comedian? Was I a branding expert? Which one did I want to be in a given moment? And this was kind of a disaster for a number of reasons, but one of which was that I had presented myself as a comedian, and the person who introduced me the next day at my talk started off by saying, "This next speaker is hysterically funny. Uh,
Oh,
oh my gosh, he's performed it," and was reading my comedy intro.
yeah.
He's performed at the Ice House. He's been at the Improv. He's been at the Comedy Store. You know, he has a brand strategy and creative firm, which doesn't mean anything. And then introduced me, and
Oh,
and there was no win available to me at that
yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Now, if it happened today, which it wouldn't happen, I'll tell you why in a minute. But if it did happen, then I would have had to lean into the comedy and just do the comedy and just do a set. And the
Yeah.
hell with it. If it didn't
Exactly.
enhance that would be their fault. But what I did learn and why it would never happen is because I learned I don't want to do stand-up comedy anymore. What I really want to do is my own brand, no pun intended, of speaking, and I am going to approach my talks like they're stand-up sets. So they're going to have to be the funniest talks. They're not billed as stand-up comedy. I'm not promising the audience laughter.
Yeah.
That's up to them to decide whether they enjoy it or not. But just the same way that stand-up comedy gives the messaging and the nuggets of information and the thought provocation uh, in a different format. I was going to say forum, but it's format.
Yeah.
That's what I do as a speaker. Now, it doesn't work as well on Zoom when I did two virtual keynotes in the last few weeks,
Wow.
and they were great,
Yeah.
but not the way I would do it if I were live before an audience who can laugh. And during
Yeah.
the pandemic, if you recall, they tried doing all this stuff with
Yes.
stand up where they tried honking, people being in their cars honking. Uh, they tried doing it on Zoom. It
Yeah.
doesn't work
No.
unless the
No, it doesn't.
immediate response of laughter is there.
Yeah. See, I drifted in the same direction you went because I was performing in these nightclubs. Now, listen. I wasn't a full-time stand-up comic. I
Right.
had a law practice to run, but this is where my joy was. I'd go and perform on weekends and stuff like that. Like on Vermont Avenue in Los Angeles. I remember going to comedy clubs, sitting in the audience. waiting 2 hours for my like 5 minutes to get up
Yeah.
there, and there's
Oh
three
yeah.
guys left at 12:30 at night, and I'm performing. And I encountered this question, which is, listen, pal, like, is it your life about performing to people who are half drunk at 12:30 at night? Is that what you want? And I realized that's not so much what I love the comedy. I love, talking to people and making them laugh, but not at the cost of sitting there until
No.
12:30 at night.
No, I came around to the same realization. At first, sometimes we'll do things and we won't even understand our motivation. I took the attitude that I was going to focus on my, business and not so much on stand up, more as a practical thing. And also, like you say, the idea of going and doing bar shows and
Yeah,
all of that stuff, didn't appeal to me. But not that I didn't enjoy bar shows, but that was a luxury. They were a
yeah,
luxury to me, actually.
yeah,
If I had the luxury of staying up late and not going out until 10 and waiting until I my number came in the lineup, you know, great. That's a luxury.
yeah,
It's not that I didn't enjoy it, but that was something I had to figure out. This wasn't about whether I enjoyed it or not. It was about
yeah,
what's the big picture.
yeah,
Um, but what I came around to was I really wanted the value of speaking before an audience the same way a comedian would love to go to do a show where they're on the marquee, right? And they're not just in the lineup.
yeah,
I wanted to go to speak where the people who were coming were going to really benefit from my knowledge and my
right.
expertise, but they'll also enjoy the personality, the humor,
Mhm.
the take on the world, all of those things. It's just, I just, the stand up for the sake of itself as a medium, I just felt I was no longer committed to, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, but the way you talked about that just now, like earlier, makes me think about how do you see our challenge now from a comic point of view is just exactly what you said, which is unless you're in person to person in an audience, really the best comedy in my view is stand-up comedy in front of an audience,
Yeah.
where you're getting the reaction. So as great as the internet is and that we're able to communicate in these ways like we are today, it's taking away that human quality that's so, to me, so precious. And the question is, how do you, like, we just don't have the big meetings like we used to, like in the great old days.
Hmm.
You have 5,000 people at a convention, like it was a barn burner of
Well, so that is a conundrum because that's a very good point you make, Andy. Is the world does the world accommodate the kind of speaking we
yeah,
like to do? But that's a challenge that we face in general. Do
yeah,
people want to engage in the way that we like to engage, which is substantively?
yeah,
Do people want to have substantial, deep, yet fun conversations in a live setting? One thing that I love watching, and I've done a lot of it. I've done a lot of it as both a guest and as a visitor, is live podcasting,
mhm,
which um, I'm going to do with my Truth Tastes Funny podcast, to do a Truth Tastes Funny live where I I bring it to a city, and and we have an audience of 100 people, and we do a podcast live. That's one thing. But of course, that's not a talk or a keynote address or something like that.
right,
There's workshops, which also are for an audience, but the audience is in whole or in part engaged in the experience.
Yeah.
And then there's the and this I don't know. I just because it's the holidays, I'm able to take some time to think about this over the next couple weeks.
Mhm.
But the question of a show or performance that is in fact billed as a kind of a draw, as a must-see event
Yeah.
or an entertainment event, but is geared toward a certain audience. So theoretically, you could get to a point where uh, 2,000 people attend this thing because 2,000 people attending something because it's a work event is very rare.
Yeah.
Um, but 2,000 people attending something that they know they're going to be entertained by, but also speaks to something like entrepreneurism or business,
Yeah.
or in my case, selling the truth. The selling the truth message is about more than business. So, in promoting my book, I'm toying around with developing a show that is a little broader than the norm.
Yeah.
Um, and that's just
Well,
something, you know.
I'll say this. You want to perform, go to Niagara Falls. They have comedians performing there, like the standard brand
Mhm.
comedians, thousands of people in the audience. So it's not dead. It's
Oh
still
no,
there.
yeah.
And I'm sure it's in Las Vegas and so on. But it's not what it used to be, I guess, is the way I would put it. And even maybe it is like it used to be. I'm kind of older, and I've kind of withdrawn from that area a little bit. So I don't hang out late at night somewhere downtown in Toronto, where the yuck yucks and people, the places like
Yeah.
that are. Um, but one thing that comes to mind from our discussion, I gave a presentation in Miami not long ago, just a couple of weeks ago. Now, it wasn't a stand-up comedy routine, it was a presentation. And the title was The Art of Advocacy in the Courtroom and in the Boardroom.
Mhm.
And I threw in a bit of spicy humor in there. But the point that I was making in that presentation uh, was one of, one of the big things that's happening nowadays is communication is uh, hollowing, I would say. I don't know how to put it, but uh, the golden brand of communication, and I consider comedy in that category, is undivided attention in speaking with someone else. It's very rare. In this talk that I gave, I spoke about what is love. And I said, you spell love Time. And the clearer the Time, the better the love. Because we're all so, busy and, like a cell phone, computer, iPad, and so on, that your attention is not focused most of the time, or a lot of the time. You're with someone, but you're not really focused with the person. So
Yeah.
the golden standard of today's communication, in my view, is uninterrupted, undivided, focused uh,
Attention. Yeah.
rapport with someone else,
Yeah.
especially with children. Spending time is what you're doing. You're investing yourself in them. And like I'm a grandfather now, and I got these two kids. Both of them are under, like, one is under 3 and the other's under 1.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about grandkids, you're older. and it's like a hurricane going through the house. It's just
Yeah.
like it's exhausting, you know. And
Oh
you got to
yeah.
pay attention to these kids. If you don't pay attention, they're off, like um the gift that you can give, and my sort of my realization is the gift that you can give them is this undivided attention, that they see that you're with them, that you're not. And I want to drift off in my mind. I'm thinking, oh, geez, okay, he's playing with that guitar there. I can drift off for a couple of seconds off into the,
Right.
office and what I got to do there. No, 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 I can't. Not if it's real love,
Right.
you
That's
know.
beautiful, Andy,
Yeah,
because look, I have five kids and the youngest is 10. So
yeah,
I still have a youngish child, and then I have a granddaughter who's almost two.
yeah,
So, you know, but the focus, the thing still wants to be, it's like that 100% attention.
yeah,
I don't, you know, it's hard enough to give somebody 100% attention, even without the phone or the device or the
yeah,
computer or the work. It's hard enough even in your mind
yes,
to focus on something.
yeah,
And I think, but it's worth the effort, you
yeah,
know, and that circles back around to that same part of the conversation about speaking, giving a talk,
yeah.
you know, and really championing that form,
Yeah.
that art form of
Yeah,
speaking.
it's this connect. There are three forms of communication. One is simple transactional. Where's the washroom? Oh, it's down the hall and to the right. That's a transactional. The other one is sort of like a meeting of the minds. Uh, you know, I'm building, a golf course. It's going to be 18 holes. Are you going to have, golf carts on it? Yes, I am. And so, oh, let's do this and this and this. A meeting of the minds, contractual kind of in the law of contracts that you call it, the meeting of the minds. And then there's this kind of communication we were just talking about, which is a meeting of the hearts. It's a kind of a spiritual. It's where you become. Uh, what's the word for that? Um, a soul mate to the
Yeah.
person you're with. We, Hirsch, you and I, are soulmates.
Hmm.
I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I mean, like because of what we're talking about and this stuff. But we went right straight to soulmates, like from I believe anyway. Maybe I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
But very soon, as soon as we started talking, I felt this connection, this like spirit,
Yeah.
if spirit, whatever way you understand that. But I saw right away, hey, this guy is like right in my wavelength. I
Yeah.
can talk to this guy openly with all my, you know, uh, shortcomings and everything, and it's no problem. It's part of
Yeah.
the conversation.
Yeah.
Now, how that relates to comedy, well, somewhere in there, these thoughts play in terms of at least when I've been up on a stage and presenting. If I hear an audience laugh at like a punchline that I really like, it's a big reward to me. I'm really thrilled that they like it.
Yeah.
I'll illustrate it. One of my favorite little jokes is, I think I might have told you this joke, so you probably won't laugh at it. But anyway, a woman went to a pet shop and she saw a parrot. And she thought to herself, I'm going to buy that parrot, and teach it how to talk. So she takes it home. I bought it, takes it home, puts it in a cage in the living room. And she's teaching it. She's thinking, what should I teach it? Well, people are coming to the door all the time. So maybe I'll teach it how to say, who is it? So when people knock on the door, he'll say, who is it? So he taught her that. She taught her that. And she goes shopping one day. And while she's away, a guy comes to the door. He knocks on the door. And the parrot says, who is it? And the guy says, it's the plumber. And the parrot says, who is it? And the guy says, it's the plumber. And the parrot says, who is it? It's the plumber. And the guy gets exasperated so much so he faints. And the woman comes home. She looks, there's this guy lying on the, on the doorstep. She leans over, she's looking at him, and she says, gee, I wonder, who is it? And the parrot says, it's the plumber. See, I love that joke. I love that joke.
It's great.
Yeah. And if people laugh at that joke, it's a reaffirmation of my values, that
it's great.
they appreciate my values, and I appreciate theirs.
Well, my dad, who was one of the great joke tellers and where I got my love of comedy from.
Yeah.
My mom would definitely consider herself a wonderful audience, but a terrible joke teller. She would say to me, oh, you know which joke is great? The one about where at the end the parrot says he's the plumber.
Yeah.
That's how she would do it, because she would be like, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to tell the joke. Or she would say to my father, Josh, tell the joke about the who's the plumber, but he would say there are only a certain number of jokes in the world.
That's
and
true.
every joke, it falls into a certain category. So one of his favorite jokes that's similar to the plumber joke, similar, like it would fall under that category.
Yeah.
Which you may know, because this is a pretty well-known joke, but the joke about an actor who finally gets his break, and it's one line. Do you know this joke?
Go ahead.
You do.
I don't know.
But okay, but I'm telling it for the audience.
Yeah.
So he gets the one line. He gets the one line, and the one line is, "Hark, is that a cannon I hear?" It's a big production, a big stage production. All he has to do is say, "Hark, is that a cannon I hear?" But this is his big break, so he doesn't want to screw up the line. So as he's all the way, he's walking to the they told him, you got to come right away to the theater. It's going to be tonight's performance. Somebody's out. You get to do this line. Hark, is that a cannon I hear? And the whole way he's on the train. Hark, is that a cannon I hear? He's trying to think, how can I make this line the most impactful it ever was? So he's saying, should I be thoughtful? Hark, is that a cannon I hear? Or should I be bombastic? Hark, is that a cannon I hear? And he's just thinking every possible way he could do it, because he wants to have all the options. He also wants to know the line really well. He gets into the theater. Hark, is that a cannon I hear? Hark, is that a cannon I hear? They rush him into wardrobe. They put the outfit on him. It's a soldier's outfit. And they put the outfit and the hat. They're trying on the hat, fixing, but he's focused. Hark, is that a cannon I hear? Hark, is that a cannon I hear? They push him out on stage. He's like, hark, is that a cannon I hear? Hark, is that a cannon I hear? Here comes a huge cannon blast. And he turns around to the audience and he goes, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
That's it. But it's that same idea.
Oh yeah, I know that.
The parent says it's a plumber.
Yeah.
But wow, this is fun. So much fun. But I would love it if you would share with the audience what's a little bit of advice you might give them.
Well, I'll give you this advice: 5 rules to live by, which is sort of no matter what's happening to you, what are 5 rules to live by that I find I try to live by them. So the first one is, and now these are simple. These are, come on time. Do what you promise. Finish what you start. Mean what you say, meaning don't be cynical. Mean what you say. And be kind. 5 rules. Now, they're simple, but very hard to follow, to be true to the rules. But I think a person who follows those 5 rules could lead a pretty good life.
Thanks so much for tuning into Truth Tastes Funny. If you enjoyed the experience, please leave a 5-star review and share this podcast with your friends.